Hello, very, very good evening. Warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows, and albeit 24 hours later, very happy Mother's Day to the many mums who operate in our wine industry, either as winemakers or as wine salespeople or wine experts, or in the case of the Nickel household, those mothers who drink voracious amounts of wine to try and deal with their globetrotting husbands. So happy Mother's Day to all of you. Hope you had a good celebration over the weekend. I had a fabulous celebration. It was completely self-indulgent. I shamelessly tend to pick places to take my wife for a Mother's Day lunch that I want to go to. And so yesterday, one for those of you either in the Johannesburg area or if you're heading north from the Cape or wherever else you might be in the world, if you're touching down in Johannesburg in the near future, the newly revamped Zoo by David Higgs. Now, it did have a kind of a pan-South American feel to it in the past, lots of Zalze dishes and items with a South African touch, but a global feel. But it's dialed down to something a little more different as of last week, Tuesday being the reopening day. It is now an Asian menu, and what an Asian menu it is. Chef Miyamoto, who is one of Japan's great chefs, has been working with David on a really exciting menu. There's the sushi you might expect, the normal sashimi, nigiri, salmon rolls, California rolls. But then there's the house sushi that they've had a lot of fun with. A blastingly fresh tuna tataki, headlining the array that's full of things like soft shell crab and salmon with a bit of a twist. So really fun there. But there's also some great dim sum, some lovely shredded duck bao, a couple of prawn dishes that almost caused a fight at our table in terms of who got to finish them, and some great big mains as well. It's one of those places where you think, yeah, I'll just have one of these, one of those, and a couple of them, and before you know it, your table is full. You've got far too much food, but you eat it anyway, which is exactly what we did. So congratulations, David. From a wine perspective, there is still an excellent wine list, as there was at Zoo in its previous iteration, but also a really interesting sake menu. And look out in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be visiting Zoo, sitting down with Chef Miyamoto and exploring the menu in the context of the sake with which it can be served. And it's a space we don't know a huge amount of, naturally, in South Africa, unless you've traveled to Japan. Not a great amount of sake makes its way to South Africa. So I suspect for many, including me, it'll be a great introduction to Japanese rice wine and how that works with the food it comes alongside at Zoo. So big thank you there to David Higgs. That was the celebration of the week gone by. What about the celebration of the week to come? Well, there is excitement rippling through the city ahead of Saturday and Sunday because Darielle Robertson is back in town. And if Darielle is back in town, you know that you've got a party to look forward to, and one that is going to be full of incredible people having a very, very good time, all dressed up in an industrial dose of indulgence. And that's exactly what is coming this weekend. It is the Johannesburg Cap Classique Champagne and Bubbles Festival. Darielle again amassing a group of people who make Cap Classique, who make champagne, who make Prosecco, who make anything and everything in between. And it's always a wonderful celebration of both the established names of Champagne and Cap Classique, but also some of the newer local producers who you might arrive not knowing so well, but generally leave being smitten by and feeling quite proud that our South African bubbles industry is in such a healthy space. So today, we're going to be talking to a selection of producers. We have Quoin with us today, Kleine, Zalze, and Haute Cabriere, as well as Darielle herself, and possibly one more surprise guest. We'll see how the show goes as we look ahead, not just to this weekend, but also to the horizon for the bubbles category in South Africa, which personally I feel has never been stronger. All that's coming in just a moment. Let's start, though, with some of the latest wine news. And we begin with a trip later on this year. Now, this comes with a health warning because it involves spending time with Alan Lamb and Daryl Balfour. Now, these are two wonderful, wonderful men, but they are quite thirsty. And if you join them on their gourmet food, wine, and safari, you're going to need a fairly stern constitution, but it'll be worth it because the trip is exceptional. It takes you through a journey of the winelands, and it's not just let's drop in at a wine farm, say hello, have a tasting and head off. You meet the winemakers themselves. You meet other winemakers who've come along to join in with some of their own wines. You get a really, really intimate look at the South African wine landscape. Alan Lamb, former England cricketer from South Africa, went to school at Wynberg and now comes back to South Africa on a regular basis. He's a great champion of South African food and wine. And alongside of him, Darielle Balfour, who's one of the all-time great bush photographers and safari photographers. He really is an exceptional talent, and their shared love of wine as well as great bonhomie means that this is going to be a terrific job. There's the option of a bush trip as well. But if you would like to get involved, then info@lamassociates.co.uk. There are only a few spots left. Now, particularly if you're coming out from abroad, this is a really nice way to either discover the winelands for the first time or get reacquainted if you haven't been for a little while, and to do so with some wonderful, wonderful hosts, not just in Lammy and Daryl, but also the winemakers will be joining you through the course of the week. Think people like Mike Radcliffe, Miles Mossop, a whole pile out of the Swartland, Ken Forrester, Ian Nodir, and many, many more. Great trip. If you can get onto that one, you're in for a treat. Now, this is a really cool collaboration, and Albertus Besson driving this. It's a chef network based out of Stellenbosch and surroundings of the winelands. And it's really a chance for chefs to come together, to share their knowledge and their understanding, to give opportunities to young chefs coming through each other's restaurants and acting in mentorship roles. And also, and that's why it features on a show such as this, particularly by Albertus, ensuring that our next generation of star chefs are also up to speed with the joy and delight that is South African wine. I'm not sure I know a chef who is quite as obsessed with wine as Bertus is. He does all of his own wine lists with his wine team at the 26 at last count restaurants he currently has. Whenever you go to them, I look at Speckenburner as a great example. It's full of hand-picked, quirky selections that in many cases you haven't heard of before, but because Bertus is involved, you know you're in for a treat. So this is very much in its formative stage, but keep an eye out. The chef network in and around Stellenbosch, called Onderstock, that's under the root stock. So there is a wine link in the name as well. And well done to Bertus and team for creating something really cool that's, I think, going to have a really strong impact on not just food, but also wine as well in Stellenbosch and surrounds. This is coming up next Monday. I'm in London for the rest of this week, but I'll get back on Sunday because I need to catch up with Carmen Stevens next Monday. And who's not going to want to catch up with Carmen Stevens? Great character, great winemaker, great personality in the wine industry. And so I shall be with her from 6 until 8 next Monday at the, not the Carmen Stevens Winery, but at the Norman Goodfellows store in Fourways. You can catch her on the show beforehand from 5 until 6, and then we'll move out into the store itself. I think this one is just about sold out, so you'll need to hurry along to the Norman Goodfellows website. It'll cost you, I think it's 100 Rand, and all of that money goes to charity. It's just to make sure you've paid and you come, and you do want to come because it's going to be a really cool evening, sharing Carmen's story, trying her wine, having something to eat, and enjoying the comradeship of fellow wine lovers. So that's this coming Monday. Carmen Stevens and myself, along with the Norman Goodfellows team. Get your tickets, if they are left, at Norman Goodfellows on their website. All right. Well, very well. Welcome to this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm generally excited about this show, as anybody who watches it will know. But I get really excited when it's about cool events that are celebrating really important aspects of our wine industry. And this weekend does exactly that. It brings people together. And I think most of us still get quite excited going back to big events after that long stretch when we couldn't. We also get excited when it's full of bubbles and champagne and Cap Classique, and that's what this weekend is. But it's also the opportunity to take some great French champagne, and there are some terrific brands being showcased at the festival on Saturday and Sunday, and then to take some of South Africa's best, both established and up and coming, and see how we fare. And spoiler alert, we tend to fare pretty well. But don't take my word for it. Let's get it from 3 top producers, plus the organizer of the event. Very warm welcome to Darielle Robertson from DNA Events, who is the evil genius behind getting us all to indulge for entire weekends at a time at the festival this weekend. We also have Kleine, Zalze and Quoin Rock and Haute Cabriere joining us in the form of Skulk, Lisa Marie and Quoin. Guys, welcome. Lovely to have all of you on the show. And just lovely to be having this weekend to look forward to. Now, Dari, if I take a look at it, if this had been me, had I been bright enough to come up with the concept myself, I would have thought, right, well, here's a great opportunity to get lots of people to give me free bubbles as samples, to then have a festival where I can drink even more of it, and then get people to buy tickets and pay me money to come and join my own party. Of course, you are a little more ethical than I am, and so there is far better reasoning behind this. Give us the history of this festival and why it's become such a smash success in Johannesburg.
Well, Dan, we started off small when we did start doing the festival. It was myself and Anne Ferreira that did the first Joburg Bubbly Festival, which was 12 years ago. So the festival really has grown and come together. We obviously missed the COVID years, and since COVID, it's been quite tough to get it back up and running again. But I'm glad to say that we definitely are up and running again. We've got 23 producers. We are sold out on Saturday. We are over 60% full for Sunday. And it really is a fantastic opportunity to come and taste not only South African bubbles, but Prosecco and Champagne as well. And it's a chance to taste something you wouldn't normally buy. And I think that's always the biggest thing for me, is don't come and taste what you normally buy. Come and taste something different. Come and taste something that your friends have raved about or that your friends don't even know about. So it is exploratory as well, which is great. And for the first time in 3 years, we have got sunshine. There is no rain this weekend. So I am over the moon.
You feature champagne quite prominently, and there might be the occasional person who ways, hey, you can't have champagne. This is a South African festival. We need to be celebrating our Cap Classique. We have a philosophy, and we voice it regularly on this show, that it's so important to be drinking the international wine, whether it is Champagne versus Cap Classique, or it is Bordeaux versus Stellenbosch, or it's Burgundy versus Himelanada, or it's South Australian Shiraz versus some of our own, just to get that sense of context, to weigh ourselves up against people the world sees as the best, and occasionally see where maybe we have a bit of a shortfall. But I think most of the time, to have a proud smile and go, whoa, our stuff's just as good as theirs is.
I think if not better, I will be that person. And I think we can be so proud of what South Africa is producing at the moment. And it just goes from strength to strength. And often I say to people, go and get a tasting from one of the champagne producers, go and get a tasting from one of the Prosecco producers, and go get a tasting from a Cap Classique producer. Close your eyes and see what you prefer. So it is a chance for you to compare them. It is a chance for you to taste everything. And also it's sometimes an opportunity for you to drink something that you normally wouldn't afford. So foreign wines, I think, are not affordable to everyone. It's not affordable to buy a 1,000 Rand bottle of bubbly every weekend. But if you can come to a show and you can taste it, well, that's fantastic. And if you work out that South African bubbles is better than the 1,000 Rand bottle that is on offer, well, then what a win. But I think it's so important to have everything and to try everything, and especially for those people that think champagne is better than Cap Classique, they will see that the brands that we have coming, the Nicholas Fouliat and the Comtesse Alexa, they are really great champagnes. They'll blow your socks off. They are phenomenal, but just as good as the rest of the South African brands that are out there. So I think it's about perception and about changing mindsets. But I think it's also important that you always taste different regions and different wineries.
Let's take that comparison off to one of our producers. Kick off there with Skulk. Skulk, the concept of foreign versus local. I don't really like setting it up that way, because I think we should be drinking them in tandem to get the best out of each other. But what is your sense from a producer perspective on what the wine drinker in the street is feeling about South African Cap Classique today in the context of champagne, which has been the global benchmark for as long as we've had bubbles, versus, say, 5-10 years ago when I feel certainly perceptions might have been a little different?
Yeah, no, Dan, thank you very much, and thanks for having us on the show, first of all. I'm glad Darielle started the conversation, and she actually mentioned a lot that I was hoping to sneak into the interview, especially the fact that, South African bubbles, Cap Classique specifically, it really stands up to the rest of what a lot of guys internationally and specifically in Champagne can produce. I had a privilege of traveling to Champagne last year in October on a bit of a tasting mission, rubs on the shoulders with the winemakers, etc. on that side. And, the guys over there really sits with an exceptional terroir. They make exceptional bubbly. You never want to take anything away from that, especially the long history they have in making that style wine. But getting more and more involved in Cap Classique production over here at Quoin over the last few years, etc. It's really nice to see for South African clients, especially, the value you get from a Cap Classique in South Africa. And it doesn't always need to mean that it is cheap and cheerful. We can make some really serious bubbles. So even for the top connoisseur out there, that really likes the champagnes but want to try something else and something more local, we're all quite patriotic as South Africans. If you watch Chasing the Sun or any one of those shows, you know what I mean. And therefore, we like to use our own products. And what fantastic thing it is to have Cap Classique that we can stand up to anybody in the world on a quality level. And we firmly believe that. At Quoin especially, we're still a new producer in the sense of Cap Classique, unlike Haute Cabriere, of course, has been making it for a very, very long time. But we have the terroir, we have the expertise and the people and the belief that we can definitely compete internationally. So for the clients coming to the show, it's a great example, as Darielle said, a great opportunity to taste, bubbles from different regions and make up your own mind. But I think you'll be surprised to see what you find.
You've got, like many of our producers now in South Africa, you have an element of international ownership. So there's certainly a sense, I'm sure, of wanting to make it absolutely clear that what we're producing in South Africa is as good as anywhere else in the world. To do that, you need a couple of things, Scott. You need a terrific winemaker, which you've got. You need a great team on the farm. You've got that as well. You also need the right terroir, the right conditions. In nice and simple terms, what is it about where you are at Quoin that allows you to mirror what they do in Champagne and create a product that is something that can rival many of the great French equivalents?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the little ace up our sleeves at Quoin is, first of all, that the grapes we use in our product is our own grapes. From a bit of Pinot Noir that we buy in from Elgin. But our Chardonnay, for instance, comes from our Stellenbosch farm, as well as our farm in Elim, situated in Cape Agulhas. So although we don't have that limestone soils and all of that Champagne has, it really is significant in the production of their bubbles, and that I do feel really have a big quality impact in their wines. We do have that section that we can use from our Elim, our Cape Agulhas section. It really gives us that limey, salinity, great fresh acidity with really low pHs to make something similar. So for me as a winemaker, that's really the massive benefit that we have in terms of having that two terroirs to play around with. That makes a huge difference for us. And then obviously the research and time and effort we put into it, like any of our other wines, our red blends, etc. We put our minds at it. We really strive to be the best at it. So we work with international guys as well in terms of consultation on our bubbly production and see where we can do better. Even from the picking to the press cycles and programs to the disgorgement and dosage, all of that, every little detail. We don't leave any stone unturned.
All of which delivers the product, which we then get to enjoy, and we enjoy it because it is seriously good. Lisbury, when you look at a producer like Quoin, one of the newer kids on the block, I think people who don't know the wine industry are often a little surprised at just how well people in the wine industry in South Africa seem to get on, and how genuinely happy South African wine producers are when other producers do well. There just is mostly that kind of relationship? How valuable is it to you guys as a key Cap Classique producer in South Africa to see more producers coming in, to see more names coming up, to see South Africa being viewed more by the rest of the world as a world-class center of bubbles?
Yeah, it's so nice that the wine industry and the Cap Classique industry is growing. If you think how small it was a few years ago and how it grew to where it is today. And it's also nice that the whole wine industry can help each other. When I have a problem with my Cap Classique, I can just ask my friend next door, and everyone helps each other. And the Cap Classique, we have so much potential in South Africa for Cap Classiques. So if you compare it to the international sparkling wines, we can be very proud of the product that we make. You only realize it when you do a blind tasting, and then you actually see that the South African wines stand out above the international wines.
I've just reached up into part of the cellar because I had this one looking down at me. There we go, get that other light. Some Kleine Zalze Cape Nectar. And I want to ask you about this in particular, Liesemarie, because you're one of the many producers now who has embraced this demi-sec style wine that is a little bit sweeter. Certainly in Johannesburg, it's a roaring growth that we've seen for a slightly sweeter style of bubbles. Tell me about this and how this has become a really big part of the South African Cap Classique space.
Yes, so that's our Cape Nectar. It's a demi-sec, so the sugar is about 40 grams per liter. So it's the same base wine as our normal brut, but it's just got a higher sugar. We actually realized that when we did a lot of wine shows in Johannesburg, there's such a big market for something that's sweeter. And that's why I said I'm never going to make a sweet Cap Classique in my life, but there is a market for it. So we decided to release our the Nectar Blanc. It's a Chardonnay Pinot Noir, and we also have a Nectar Rosé. That's a Pinot Noir Chardonnay. And in Johannesburg, there's a very, very big market for it. So at the Bubbly Festival, it usually does very well. And there's a lot of people that have a sweeter tooth. And it's easier approachable to start drinking Cap Classique that's sweeter and then go drier. And when you go dry, you never go back.
It is part of that journey. And I think often it's a journey that people won't begin if they don't have a comfortable starting point. So if you've never had bubbles before, you're probably going to find a zero dosage is just far too abrasive and unpalatable, but work your way down from demi-sec, and I don't think it'll be too long before you get there. Quoin, as referenced by Skulk earlier, you guys have been doing this for some time now, and from your dad now onto yourself, overseeing one of South Africa's most iconic brands of bubbles. How much of a smile does it put on the face of Van Arnhem Senior and Junior to look back at where bubbles was in its early days, the days when your dad was first making bubbles in South Africa, and looking at where that part of the industry has got to today?
Well, Dan, it's been quite an evolution. I mean, my father was actually the second and third cellar master in South Africa to be focusing on Cap Classique. So the second being at Bosch and Dahl, and the third being owner and proprietor in Franschhoek. And he was the first to really specialize. So not producing still wines, no other distractions. He was the first to really focus on this magical product of Cap Classique. So yeah, no, very, very exciting. It is amazing. I think it's very important to have examples from around the world and share. I always enjoy wines. I get a little bit upset when everyone kind of puts things into domains like just Stellenbosch wines or just Franschhoek wines. I think we must be more open about it, because wine is all about sharing. And there has been a tremendous evolution in Cap Classique. And I'm pleased that there are other companies. I fight against demi-sec. It's not my style. However, I think it is very important to create that the stepping stone. It's about an 80-20 rule and price differences and experiences, that there are wineries that come out and create this entertainment of understanding wine, and then I like the aspect of taking the creamy off the top and just talking in depth about the beauty of dry wines. And people get dry and sweet so wrong. If someone comes up to you and says there's a sweet, and you say, no, this is dry. Dry is analytical. If you've got a perfect balance, and this is what I love about Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, if you've got a perfect balance of those two grape varieties, then it might be analytically dry, but the balance and the power and the mid palate, that's where I like playing around and having fun with, and opening up those discussions. But yeah, we come a long, long way. And I mean, it is fantastic after going through such a crazy period like COVID that Darielle and her team has got the Cap Classique show going up in Joburg, which is a very, very important market for the Western Cape. There's a huge consumptioners over there. So it's a wonderful balance of learning, sharing, enjoying. The one thing I can say is, generally Champagne and Cap Classique, you'll see that a lot of the wines are non-vintages. So what is very, very like an insider tip is that South African Cap Classiques will always be fresher than the ones from the Champagne, because you never know how long they are at sea or in a container waiting for that special moment, where ours are closer to home, will always be fresher, a little bit more brilliant on the palate, and definitely far more exciting. So we can be so, so proud of our wines. But it is so important just to share and be open about it.
A nice patriotic endorsement of what's to come. And that gives you one tip, Quoin, because you've done many of these over the years. I think you were 3 or 4 when you hosted your first tasting at a festival of bubbles and did a marvelous job thereof. If somebody's coming to one of these for the first time, and it's probably advice that can apply to larger wine affairs, but for this one, you're getting there. You quite like bubbles, and so possibly at a normal wine tasting event, you'd go to the bubbles section. Now it's just bubbles everywhere. What's Quoin's guide to getting the best out of an event like this, making the most of it, coming away not just having enjoyed something, but also having learned something?
Well, Dan, the most critical point about going to any wine show is have a decent breakfast. Then you'll keep your clothes on. So have a good breakfast beforehand, and then have a list. I mean, if you've got inside information, we have got websites. There are so much things available that Darielle probably has got online. Read up on it and create a little bit of a list. Maybe just pop in at your classics that you've really enjoyed. They might give you a hint because they've been at the show or they know someone new. Don't be frightened to ask questions. I'm always open to, even though I'm very bad with names, of who could be the better one out there. And just be open about it and have fun. Go there with an open mind, but don't forget that breakfast. It's critical. Especially because the thing about bubbles is when you take a sip, those tiny little bubbles go into your system very quickly. So you immediately feel relaxed. Whereby wine, it takes a little bit longer and then it really hits you like a sledgehammer. But with bubbles and Champagne or Cap Classique, you immediately feel like kind of, and so with a good foundation there, you can have a lot more fun. I always say it's like jumping onto a cloud. It's your decision when you want to hop off.
All right, get that breakfast in, as those of us who've experienced a nude Quoin at past events will be very, very keen to endorse. Darielle, some of the information that Quoin suggested there, just give us an overview if you want to try and get some of the few tickets remaining for Sunday, but also if you want to get an idea, if you want to start doing a bit of planning, working out, right, who's the hit list, who are the 5 producers I must get while my palate is still nice and fresh, where do we go to get that information?
Well, Dan, everything is on my social media pages, so DNA Events and Festivals or Wine and Bubbly Festivals. But we have a few new producers this year, which is great. And it's the first time I've got Prosecco at the show. So previously, we haven't had Prosecco due to the naming rights. We've always called the festival the Cap Classique and Champagne Festival. We've now added the and bubbles part so that we can get Proseccos on board. And we have 3 Proseccos as well as Andiamo, which is an Italian-styled bubbly that it's like an Aperol spritz that's pre-bottled, made here in South Africa as well. Then we have Lamborghini wines coming, which is a Prosecco, as well as house wines. And W Cellars bringing us a Prosecco, champagne, and then the local Cap Classiques. But if it was up to me, I would make a list of the guys that I haven't yet tasted. Go and read up about their stories. We do try and do a story on each one of them before the event on our social media pages. And try something new. It's the first time Quoin Rock's going to be at our show, so I'm quite excited about that. Thanks, Skulk. And yeah, just come and have fun. It really is a great day out, and you will have fun. We've got great music. We've got 2 lots of music. We've got Veronique, and we got Labella and on sax and with the DJ. And then we've got the best dressed competition, which is sponsored by Field Bar and Pongratz. And that'll take place at 1:30 every day. So Saturday is sold out. Sunday, we do still have a few tickets available. We've got hospitality tickets as well as the normal tickets. But I think you better hurry for those as well. And it's all on web tickets.
Tell me very quickly about a selection of those producers, which I know get people really excited. We've got 3 or 4, I think, young, fairly new Black South African brands, people like Kulu, House of Amari in there as well, and Mvula's there. These are young brands that are still very, very new to the industry, but already having quite an impact.
Definitely, and the Nola wines. So they are all there, and House of Azari is also there, and they're great. They come along, they just embrace the industry. They love it. They're also there to learn. Try and catch them when they're behind their stands, because they're spending their time also trying to learn and going around and chatting to the guys. And they really are invested in the brand. They're invested in Bubbles, and they want to chat to everyone. And I think that's the beauty of this festival is don't just go and hand your glass in and say what you want. Stand there and talk to the guys. The guys are so passionate. They want to tell you about the Bubbles. They want to tell you about their brand and what makes their brand special. And they're there to educate you and find something fun. Get a fun fact from them that when you put that bottle on the table at your dinner parties, you can say something about it that'll blow people's minds. It's always fun, and it's always an easy way to get knowledge, and really make a great choice next time you go to Norman Goodfellows. You'll be able to recognize 23 of the brands that are there.
It really is such a valuable aspect of a weekend of excitement and enjoyment. It leads me that aspect of learning. It's not just for those of us who are going along as guests, but no doubt that for all of the winemakers, as Darielle suggested, if you get that gap, you slip away for 10 minutes because somebody told you, or you must try the zero dosage from 2 doors down, or there's a cracking Prosecco I think you should have a taste of. It's just part of that journey of learning more about wine that never ever ends.
Yes, so I think every day you learn. I started at Kleine Zalze 8 years ago, and I didn't know anything about Cap Classique. And my boss that time, RJ, he told me, you must make the Cap Classique. And I was like, I didn't even know how to do it, because at university they teach you just the basics of Cap Classiques, not the whole process. And then I had a file with a recipe, and I followed the recipe, and everything worked out 100%. And I didn't have sleepless nights. So I think every day while you make Cap Classique, you learn new things every day and experiment, and you have to try new things in the winery. And I learned everything throughout the years, and at least everything worked. And a year ago, we decided, part of our project Z wines, we're going to use Chenin Blanc and ferment it not in stainless steel, but in terracotta amphora pots. So just to try a different cultivar and a different vessel. And so we bottled it, and very small scale, just to try something new. And we tasted it a month ago, and it's looking very good, but now we still have to leave it in the bottle. So it will only be released in 6 months' time. So you still have to wait for the project set. So yes, every day you learn something new while you make Cap Classique, and you have to taste a lot also. taste a lot and do a lot of dosage trials to see what works.
And as you look at what works, as you look at what you do, I think your Project Z is one of the industry benchmarks for winemakers having fun and coming up with what sometimes seem like mad and crazy ideas that often end up being a little piece of genius in a bottle. In your 8 years, as you found your feet and now started to learn about how Club Classique works and how to get the best out of the process, how much has changed in terms of your ability as winemakers to fine-tune all of this and to deliver something that with every passing vintage is just that little bit better?
Yeah, the nice thing is that every year we work with the same grapes. Some years we buy in grapes from around 30 plus producers around the area. So we go and select the best parcel of grapes, and then we contract the grapes. And some years we'll also contract new grapes. Like for example, this year we bought in new Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from the Stellenbosch region. So we had the opportunity to work with a new grape. So it's nice to every year work with something new and your existing grapes that work. And also to work with, we are a few winemakers here. So it's nice to have everyone's opinion, not just your own opinion. And when we do tastings, we all taste together. Sometimes we disagree, but most of the time we are on the same page. So it helps a lot if you have a few other people to also give their opinion. And we're a very nice team at Kleine Zalze that works well together.
And if you want proof of that, we'll head straight to the Kleine Zalze table at the festival this weekend. There'll be plenty of it just waiting to be poured. Tough one. If I look at one of the elements that for me has really caught the eye over the last few years, it's the increasing number of producers who really are investing time in what they're bringing out, and not time in terms of making the actual wine, although I'm sure that process is particularly carefully done, but hanging on to it and giving it that extra time, just lying in wait before release. We've got producers who are doing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years before they're actually releasing a bottle that they're happy with. And to me, amongst other things, that says that there's a real belief amongst the industry at the premium end that this is wine that really is worth that sort of investment.
Well, Dan, when South Africa first started off in my dad's time with Cap Classique, we were already about close to 300 years behind the Champagne. We didn't have that money. We didn't have that power for that massive investment of keeping the wines in the cellars that long. So initially there was a golden rule of about a minimum of 9 months and then putting it onto the market so you could get a return. I think through the growth and the stability and wine shows like the one that's happening this weekend, we have gained confidence and we have got the ability, and with the strength of Cap Classique and South Africans supporting Cap Classique, we can now push the needle further and further because we have got amazing wines. For me, for example, what I'm drinking now at the moment, I really do enjoy my own wines. I'm always a bit nervous, so I do definitely drink on show and at work, not just taste, is Chardonnay, because you can really push Chardonnay, South African Chardonnays as well. You can put the current vintage I'm drinking now is 7 years on the lease before it goes to the market. And it's exciting. You have to have these visions and you have to have the spectrum of being able to play. But I think the foundation is here. We've the guys that started off and now us believing in it and it growing, and South Africans visiting shows like this Cap Classique show and not being scared. I mean, Darielle really nailed it on the head by saying, read up, go and taste something different, ask questions. We're not there just to smile and pour a glass of wine. We're there to kind of interact, share the passion that we've got. That's not only in the glass, which is very prominent, but actually we are there for also a bigger purpose. And go ahead and ask those questions. Come to the farms afterwards. And live it. And yes, we're just taking it to the next level year by year.
We spoke to Liz very little earlier about the growth of nectar and how big that's become. I won't ask you about nectar because I know where that conversation will go, but I will ask you about a space within bubbles, which I've also seen a considerable rise in interest in and consumption of, and one that I know is very popular at the House of Quoin, and that would be rosé.
Rosé, definitely. I mean, nothing against nectar and people that enjoy nectar. I think it's a wonderful stepping stone. But when you go in and it's just, once the wine bug or the Cap Classique bug bites, there's such an inspiration. And rosé is, you'll see that in the still wine world as well. There's such power behind it because people are getting tired of very, very like kind of linear wines where it's really kind of soul searching and it's mathematical. But the beauty about rosés is there's a little bit more depth, there's a bit more giving, there's a bit more understanding. And Tilly Rosé is the first big bounce from a nectar, for example, because naturally with the red fruit, you've got a little more voluptuous flavors coming forward. It's a bit more giving, there's a bit more mouthfeel, there's a little bit more fruit, there's a bit more berries. So that kind of hides that so-called analytical dryness that I'm talking about, and a lovely color as well. So it's definitely playing its value. And food-wise, I mean, if you think of rosé with sashimi, you were talking earlier about carpaccios, pastas. It's definitely more of a pairing Cap Classique than a brut, blanc de blanc, something 100% Chardonnay, something very, very fresh. So it's definitely more of a food wine experience that you would enjoy.
Well, let's extend that food conversation to somebody who's selling rather a lot of food to go with the wine that he makes, because both in Stellenbosch and in Johannesburg, Cuba by Quoin has become very much a favorite amongst the food and wine sets. And particularly up in Johannesburg, Bongani and his team have been doing a terrific job. I think, Scott, one of the big things for me, and again, not something we're discussing for the first time on this show, is how a bar such as yours, where the bubbles are such a driving force of the offering, are being given to people in tandem with food, giving people that context of let's not just have some bubbles as an aperitif or to celebrate or to arrive at a cocktail party, but actually engage in it with food and discover that this is something that's got the potential to offer you such a rich dining experience.
Yes, Dan, absolutely right on hitting it on the head there. I do think a lot of people say it, and it's almost become cliche, that guys in the wine industry, we're selling an experience and not just a wine, not just a product. Wine is meant to go with food, with good times, and especially so bubbles, Cap Classique more specifically. So it comes quite natural that most of the time you'll enjoy a canapé or a snack or a main course along with bubbles. And it's definitely something that we at Quoin pushes for. Our brand is about that. It's about the enjoyment of food and wine and the whole experience, the view, the smells, everything in there. And I think if you visit any one of our sites, be it Quoin at the tasting room, or Gate, our fine dining restaurant, or any one of our two wine bars, Q Lounge in Joburg and Q Bar in Stellenbosch, that's what you'll find. Good service. It's about the wine, but also to enhance that experience for a client, you'll find amazing foods that we do a lot of effort into pair with it. Because food's not always good for every wine. You need to be careful and make sure what you have, what kind of wine. But, it's about that the wine showing a little bit more extra depth in the food as well as the food in the wine. So, definitely one of our brand strategies, and something that we specifically enjoy very much doing.
All right, so we know now we must be sure this weekend to not just work our way through bubbles, but to try and do some with a bit of food now and again. Just before we wrap up, Scott, from a winemaker's perspective, we've got some guidance on different aspects of going to the show. But if you are drinking bubbles, it's one thing to simply enjoy it and, that tastes nice and it gives me a nice feeling and I'm all nice and happy. But if we actually want to dive a little bit deeper, understand why it's making us feel so happy, why it is a good glass, and everybody's good can be a little different, what are your basic guidelines to someone who's fairly new to drinking Cap Classique, to understanding Cap Classique, to really get the best out of it, but also to understand as best as possible what you like, so you know what kind of spaces to aim for.
Yeah, that's a tricky question to answer, actually, because it's all in the eye of the beholder. At the end of the day, you can only be honest to yourself if you like it or not. So, I can tell you, I like a dry bubbles. I like a blanc de blanc. And as Quoin mentioned correctly, some of our South African Chardonnays age so beautifully. We've got one that's been on the lease for close to 11 years, still bubbly, still fresh. That really excites me. Somebody made it 10 years back. I'm drinking it today, and it's still fresh, and the bubbles are there, and I get the fruit, etc. But another guy might find it, maybe a bit dry and maybe not sweet enough, like our nectar people that likes the nectar juice, or the rosés for that matter. So it's quite personal, and I think as you progress, your palate progress, and you start to like more the refined wines and work your way to a zero dosage blanc de blanc, your palate will also change. So if you're a novice coming to the show, I'd say be open-minded. Don't just go, oh, this is bone dry, it's not working for me. Try and think, what is the method behind it? Talk to the winemakers there, or the guy selling the wine. What was the goal in making this wine? And then think for yourself, did they achieve this? So I think the thing that makes a good wine judge is somebody that's open-minded and being able to, say certain horses for certain courses. So imagine yourself having certain kind of food, what wine you're looking for. So that's my small little tip. Don't look too narrow-minded, have a broader view, and then you'll see an amazing world opening up for yourself. It's like scuba diving. All of a sudden, you can see all the fish below the ocean as well, so you get an extra part of the world that you've never seen before.
It's a terrific analogy there from Skalk and from Skalk, Marie and Quoin. Some wonderful advice, some sage guidance from three who know this space particularly well for getting the best out of the festival. Darielle, before we wrap up, just give us a final recapture. Saturday is sold out, sadly. I believe there are black market tickets changing hands at hundreds of thousands of rand. But if you want to go legally, it would have to be on Sunday. Where are we getting those tickets? What are they costing? And remind us of the attractions, both wine and otherwise, that await.
So on Sunday, we do have a couple of tickets left. They're available on web tickets. We've got two different types of tickets, a hospitality ticket as well as a general access ticket. The general access ticket is 380 Rand. That gives you 10 tasting coupons and a glass, and obviously entrance into the marquee, into the venue. We've got two different bands that are playing, and we urge everyone to dress in their best floral outfit, as the best dress competition happens at 1:30, and there are phenomenal prizes to be won. We've got the great the gin trunk by Field Bar that is being filled with Pongrats, and those field bars are quite hard to get hold of. So they're great prizes. So we urge everyone to get dressed up, come and enjoy a great day out. It's from 11 o'clock till 3 o'clock on Sunday. If you've got tickets to Saturday, it's 11 to 4. And we look forward to having you guys with sunshine for a change.
Sunshine in the sky, sunshine in the glasses as well, as bubbles from around the world unfolds in a beautiful setting and under at a terrific event. To all of you guys, thank you very, very much for joining us on the show today. Liz Murray, Quoin, Skalk, best of luck with the teams for this weekend, and thank you for sharing some sensational bubbles with the audiences who lined up with great excitement. And Dari, thanks for bringing the event back again. It really is a highlight of our Johannesburg food and wine calendar, and I know this weekend is going to be terrific. And I just leave you with a reminder, Quoin's advice: have breakfast so you keep your clothes on through the course of the day. It took us till Wednesday to get bail for Quoin last time, so it is something we cannot stress seriously enough. Guys, thank you all. Keep making wonderful bubbles, keep entertaining us, keep delighting us, and best of luck for a very, very special weekend.
Thanks, Dad.
Guys.
Cheers, guys.
To Lisa Marie Heldenhuis from Kleine, Zalze, Skalk Gottman from Quoin Rock, and Quoin van Arnhem from Haute Cabriere, along with Darielle Robertson, the director of the Johannesburg Cap Classique Champagne and Bubbles Festival. Saturday is sold out and has been for weeks. Sunday, about a handful of tickets left. So rush over to Web Tickets to get those last couple. I'll be dropping in briefly on Sunday to have a look and see how it is all going, and enjoying the fact that South African Cap Classique, like so many of the other styles of wine we now produce, can stand shoulder to shoulder with the best in the world, champagne amongst them, and look proudly out as an equal. And you'll be able to try that yourself, because there is great champagne and great Prosecco to be had. And this is not to knock champagne. This is not to say that champagne is not great. You've got some terrific champagne. What it is to say is that South Africa has come on leaps and bounds. The improvements are tangible, and you'll be able to appreciate them this weekend. That does it for Dan Really Likes Wine today. The magazine show drops on Thursday evening, 5 o'clock, and I'll be back live again next Monday at Norman Goodfellows in 4 Ways with the wonderful Carmen Stevens, looking at her story, looking at her wine, and warming up for an evening afterwards with friends of Norman Goodfellows. If you'd like to join us, head over to the website and get one of the last few tickets there for our Carmen Stevens evening at Norman Goodfellows next Monday evening. I have a plane to catch. I'm dashing off to the airport. I might see you, if you happen to be there, at the Alfred Dunhill Paddle Classic, which I'll be hosting at Hurlingham on Wednesday and Thursday, and spending some time with the team from Mirabeau and drinking a little rosé in what I hope will be some reasonably good weather in London. Have a great week. Enjoy the festival if you get there. You're in for a treat. I'll see you at the magazine show Thursday and live again next Monday. Goodbye.